So my name is Josh, and I'm going to be presenting to you Libya, the post-Gaddafi crisis. So our main focus question is, how can the international community solve the humanitarian crisis in Libya? So this is where Libya is located. It's located in the northern part of Africa, right next to Egypt. And the man in charge was Muammar Gaddafi, and he's been in charge for a long time. He originally became in charge in 1969, and then after a NATO intervention, he was captured and he was killed. And what this led to was like a rebellion and civil war within Libya, and this created a power vacuum. And basically, a power vacuum is when there are a bunch of different factions, a group of people trying to gain that power, but nobody's really in total control. And because of this caused a lot of humanitarian issues as well as economic issues. So, the humanitarian issues. So, all of these, like the main factions, there was three really big ones. They all committed war crimes. They were killing innocent civilians. They were hurting people. And not only was it like the three main groups, there was like ISIS, the Islamic State, Al-Qaeda. All these individual groups are located throughout Libya. So like migrants and refugees are experiencing sexual harassment, violence, abuse, all this stuff that they can't really help because there's no political group in charge to provide these human rights. So all these civilians lack basic needs such as water, food, and about 20% of children can't even go to school because they don't have the rights to, or they don't have the supplies to get for their everyday lives. Freedom of speech being stripped of these people. Journalists, all this stuff, the news, the media, they're all being held down. They can't really say what they want or what they think. Women's rights are being violated. As you know, a lot of these countries, they view women less than men, so they're not allowing, this is very recent actually, they're not allowing women to leave the country alone. They must be accompanied by a man within their family, so that also hurts them. And the ineffective judicial system, these groups are killing jurors, and all these people are part of it, so there's really no one that can help. And that's because there's no central government in charge to help all these guys out. So the crippled economy, this is also a result of once Gaddafi was killed. As soon as he killed, the oil production went way down. And so now most of it is controlled by one central group. And even though they're producing way less, they're still not even though they're producing less, they're not giving it away. A lot of them, they're keeping it behind closed doors to not give it out. And this is really hurting the economy. So right now, their production is about 15% of what it was in 2012, which is one of their peak years. Also, the rule of law in the economy is a problem because every single person has the right to start their own businesses and own their own properties. However, the militias and all these groups are coming in, they're going right into your businesses, shutting you down, taking you over, taking your property, and there's nobody that can stop it because all these groups, none of them are in charge. They're all fighting for this power. So all these civilians and these regular people, they're really hurting from it. Also, Libyan imports are much greater than their exports right now, so that creates a trade deficit. And a lot of these people, because of this, once again, there's no central government, they can't really tax all this stuff, and it's really hurting their economy. So the major political actors. So in 2012, the National Transitional Council was in charge, but they handed over to the General National Congress. So they were kind of the main group in Libya at the time. However, a new parliament came out of Tobruk. It's a city in Libya, and they are known as the House of Representatives. So when they came into play, there was really two groups that were trying, the main groups fighting for power, and they couldn't really decide. And then the UN stepped in about 2 years later in 2016, and they said, we support the government of national accord. This is who we think should be leading your country. So with that happening, there was three major powers along with ISIS, Al-Qaeda, and all these stuff. So this created a huge political turmoil throughout the country of Libya. So this is just a map showing you how many different forces and stuff are throughout Libya. And we have Al-Qaeda, we have the GNC, the militias, all this stuff. And so it shows you that it's not just one color, because there's just so many groups and people fighting for this power. And that's really a big problem when it comes to all the humanitarian rights and the economic issues throughout the country. So a temporary relief this is going to be our short-term recommendations. We believe humanitarian groups such as the UN, NATO should come into these countries and provide food, water, all these basic needs that these people actually need. And we think this is like the responsibility to protect. And so we think it's this ethical decision to do because we felt that these people really need our help, and if we don't do that, that would be unethical. So we decided to do that, and the means in which we were doing this is, like I said, the UN, the NATO's, all that stuff. We can bring the food, water, and I mean, this is questionable ethics because it is really not our like right to like just come in and like give them all this stuff. But we think that our questionable ethics will be deemed ethical because we just really want to help out these people. And the outcome of doing this, we're going to have fewer civilian deaths, and we're going to have people actually getting better access to the necessities at this time. And this overall is going to be what we think is ethical because it's really going to help them out in the short term. So in terms of long-term solutions, we actually came up with two. The first one is, they're actually both very similar. We want to establish a central government. And the first way that we're going to do it is we're going to kind of have it like almost like a democratic state where we're going to have elections. And we think that if we come in and do that, we suggest this idea that it's going to be ethical because we want to really help them out. And by giving them this political stability, it will really help them out. And we believe that the outcome of this, there will be one centralized government, individual parties, so everybody can vote. It's kind of like self-determination where they kind of choose what they believe. So we think if we can do this, it'll be very ethical. The other option is, well, the UN supports the General National Accord, and this is one of like the three major powers. So if we supply them with arms and all this stuff to really boost them, we think it would. Our intent would be ethical because we are trying to get a political stability. However, the means of doing that are not really ethical because we're kind of like forcing our way to making their decision for them. And the outcome, there might be more deaths because a lot of people, it's going to cause more fighting and stuff like that. So in reality, if we were going for a long term, we would choose the first option on the left because the other one's not as ethical. And so, in summary, the fall of Gaddafi led to like human rights violations and economic disaster, and which is all caused by the political instability throughout the country. These are references. Do we have any questions?
With the Libyan crisis, do you feel that just by giving like in general like humanitarian aid such as food, water, and other things to like the people unaffected by it, do you think that would help them almost go from the ground up so they can like support themselves, or do you feel that we need more government intervention more than anything else?
Well, I think we very need both of them because the first one, the short term, is really going to help them out now. It's going to give them water, food. It's going to actually help them survive, like you said. It's going to get them on the ground and keep them running. But in the long term, we really need the political stability because without the political stability, that's why they don't have their humanitarian rights, and that's why the economy is down, and that's really the whole problem is because there's no one to help them out in like the main view of things.
Do you think you're going to need to use force? I mean, the responsibility to protect basically says governments can use force if the government's not doing what they're supposed to do to get rid of the insecurity in the situation? Or are you hoping that through negotiations you can get everybody to agree?
We might actually have to use force. Like right now, there's actually a lot of surrounding countries who are trying to help them, and like they provide like the militias and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, the best case scenario, of course, would be to try to negotiate something. But worst case scenario, we would have to go in because, unfortunately, that would result in more deaths. But we think if we can protect like a greater amount of people, and that's the best way to do it, then we would be able to do that.